good, not like, okay. Now, so what I wanted to say here is which is the underlying structure here. Now, to finish, I want to convert you a little bit to Marxism. I claim that the Capital of Marx is still actual at this level, especially that old-fashioned, nobody reads it today, chapter on so-called commodity fetishism. What is Marx saying there? Something very precise. He is not saying that fetishism is our illusory misperception of how things really are. He's saying the exact opposite. Look, here is the very first two sentences of that subchapter, towards the end of the chapter 1 of Capital, commodity fetishism and its secret. It's a well-known passage, but listen to it. A commodity appears at first sight an extremely obvious, trivial thing, but its analysis brings out that it is a very strange thing, abounding in metaphysical subtleties and theological niceties. Are you aware what Marx is saying here? One would expect him, practicing critique of ideology, to start with the mysterious phenomenon, religious fantasy, and then to demystify it, to demonstrate how what appears to us a metaphysical, sacred phenomenon is really generated life process, whatever. Here, he's saying almost the opposite. He says, no, what appears an everyday common object, the analysis, the critique for Marx, the first step of critique is not like the glorious Enver Hoxha decided, when was it, the early 60s, to totally abolish religion. Okay, that it's not criticize religion. You first have to even discover religion, where people don't see. What does Marx mean here? Where is commodity fetishism for Marx? Let's vaguely distinguish, the famous formula of Marx of ideology in Capital, where he says in German, Sie wissen das nicht, aber sie tun es. They don't know it, but they are doing it. Now, the primitive reading is, of course, people do one thing and they live in illusion, so they think another thing. Like, I'm doing something, but I am not aware what I'm really doing. So, the truth is, in what I'm doing, I have a false representation of what I'm doing. But if you read really in a nice way Marx, you will see that he means the opposite, in the opposition between doing and thinking what you are doing. The illusion is in doing. Marx's thesis, to simplify it, is the following one. An ordinary subject in a capitalist society is not a fetishist in the sense that I think money is something magic. No. An ordinary bourgeois subject is a kind of a British-minded utilitarian nominalist. He thinks money is just a kind of item, sign, which gives me a right to a certain part of social product, nothing mysterious about it. Where is fetishism? It is in what you do when you interact. When you interact as if you think that, you practice your illusions, even if you are not aware of them. Your true belief is enacted in what you are doing. So it's a very nice paradox. Let's say you think that money is just a social phenomenon, and money really is a social phenomenon, but nonetheless you live in a lie, because there is a certain level in between. So you have here a wonderfully dialectical complication where it's not enough to distinguish between how things really are and how they appear to you. There is a third category of, paradoxically, how things really appear to you. How shall I put it? What you are not aware when you are in fetishism is not how things really are, but how things really appear to you. Let me give you a simpler example from psychoanalysis, very primitive one. An ordinary adolescent thinks his father is a jerk, impotent idiot, and so on. 99% it is true, I claim. So he thinks this, and the father really is dead. Nonetheless, he lives in an illusion. How can you detect this illusion? observe him when he really interacts with his father, and you will see a much more complex attitude of feeling of guilt, respect, and so on. So again, he thinks something about his father. His father really is dead, but there is a third level, and which determines his activity and so on and so on. Because of this complication, Marx never, interestingly enough, uses the term ideology for commodity fetishism. Because, you know, Marx likes to dismiss ideology as superstructure. But commodity fetishism is a strange ideology, which is not superstructure, but it's in the very heart of the economic reality itself. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the structure here gets so complex. Why? Because in a similar way, I claim our atheism functions today. We are, we can paraphrase, as did my Slovene colleague Alenka Zupančič, in her analysis of precisely of the role of belief today. She applies this joke on a chicken to the problem of religion. And she says, she gives a wonderful example. She says, let's imagine a society of enlightened atheist terror where a certain person is submitted to this ideological pressure and is finally convinced not to believe in God. There is no God. God doesn't exist. Then he is dismissed and he comes running back and say that he is afraid of being punished by God. Then they told him, but you know now that God doesn't exist. He answers, yes, but does God know that he doesn't exist, you know? And I claim, but this is now a long story. This is why I dwell so long in Christianity as an atheist. When people ask me, what are you? I claim I'm a Christian atheist. Because, as my favorite theologist, Gilbert Keith Chesterton, developed, in Christianity, for a brief moment, God himself knows that he doesn't exist. You have this moment, you remember that crucial moment of Christianity where, you know, on the cross, this Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, you know, where Christ, the dying Christ, addresses God, Father, Father, why have you abandoned me? This is a great problem for theologists. Every time that I debate with a priest or whatever, I ask him a simple question. How are we to read these lines of Christ? Does it mean that Christ really was in despair? Or does it mean that it was just a spectacle for us humans? Now, both possibilities are a catastrophe. Because if Christ, it was only to impress humans, then we have a very obscene version of Christianity as basically God wanted to impress humans and stage a spectacle of the suffering of his son, but in reality it was all a joke and the son knew, okay, let's pretend that I suffer, but hide that in 10 minutes I will be back up with you. So, but if Christ really thought he is lost, then don't forget, Christ is not a symbol, a Messiah. Christ is a living God. So, God himself was desperate. For a brief moment,